We have previously configured the requisition and candidate selection process. At the moment, it looks like there are too many details on the diagram. In this video, we will improve the readability of the diagram by using a child process. A child process is a separate process that is used as part of another larger process. In our case, the larger process, also called the parent process, is the requisition and candidate selection. It can be divided into two parts: approving the requisition and reviewing the candidates. So let's divide them and make the candidate review part a separate process. To do that, I will add a new process and name it Candidate Review. I will add the following app type variables: candidate and interview. By default, there already is a dynamic swim lane on the process diagram. It stands for the initiator. In the case of our process, the initiator is the HR specialist assigned with the requisition. The hiring manager who created the requisition will also take part in the process. So I will add a dynamic swim lane for this person. I will create a new variable that will store the value from the parent process. On the diagram of this newly created process, I will place all the activities that belong to reviewing a candidate. Here, the HR specialist assigned with the requisition organizes the first interview with the candidate and then decides whether to reject this candidate or to continue the review process. He or she then sends the candidate an assessment test, attaches the completed test to the task, and sends it to the hiring manager. The hiring manager also decides whether to reject the candidate or to continue the review. The candidate is then invited to the second interview with the HR specialist and the hiring manager. The hiring manager then makes the final decision. There are two AND events in this process: accepted and rejected. I will publish the process and then go back to the parent process. Here I will delete all the activities that I have just included in the new process. Also, I want to switch the Inform Candidate and Start Onboarding task with the Manage Status element for the candidate. Now, in order to include the newly created process into the old one, I will use the Start Process activity. I will place it on the diagram and select the Candidate Review process in the settings. Now I need to specify what will happen when this process starts. If you want the two processes to be executed simultaneously, check the Asynchronous Start option. Do not check it if you want the parent process to be put on pause until the child process is completed, which is exactly our case. Check the Inherit from Parent Process option so that the events from both processes are shown in one place. In the first version of our process, the values of context variables were only used within that one process. However, now we have two processes, so we need to pass data from one process to another. To configure that, we need to map the context variables. I will go to the Inputs and Outputs tab. In the Input Variables column, I will map the fields to pass values from the parent process to the child process. In the output variables column, I will map the fields to pass values from the child process to the parent one. Now I am matching the fields. The initiator of the candidate review process is the user acting as HR specialist in the parent process. The hiring manager is the initiator of the parent process. Also, I need to match the requisition and the candidate of both processes. The child process has two end events, accepted and rejected. The further steps of the parent process depend on how the child process ends. So we need to send to the parent process the information about how the child process ended. This information is stored in the output code system variable of the child process. To the context of the main process, I will add a string variable named result. It will store the name of the end event at which the child process ended. Now, in the output variables column, I will match the output code variable of the child process with the result variable that I have just created. Now, when the child process ends, the name of the corresponding end event, either accepted or rejected, will be sent to the result variable. In case of the accepted value, the status of the candidate will change to offered, and the HR specialist will receive a task to notify the candidate and start onboarding. In case of the rejected value, the HR specialist will have to either submit a new candidate or terminate the search entirely. So I will add a task to the main process and name it Candidate Selection. In order to check which value is sent to the results variable and route the process accordingly, I will add an exclusive gateway. I will add outgoing connectors and set up the condition for the change status connector. As the first operand, I will select the result variable. The second operand will be the accepted value. And I will select the equal symbol as operator. I also want to define the sequence in which the conditions will be checked. So, I will go to the Gateway settings, open the Connectors tab, and drag the Change Status connector higher up in the list. Now, if the value sent to the result variable is the accepted one, the process flow will follow this connector. If not, it will take the second connector. When configuring an exclusive gateway, always remember to select a default connector. It is the connector that the process will follow if none of the conditions are satisfied. In our case, I will select the connector leading to the candidate selection task. Do not forget to save the changes. Now, I will add connectors going out from the candidate selection task. Submit new candidate and stop search. I will select the colors of the buttons and activate the confirmation for the stop search connector. Now, let's publish the process. You can see that the process diagram has become less crowded and much easier to read.